We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. Hey, good morning, Monday morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we get started, we got a jam-packed show today. I want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. 1-800-330-7461. Again, that is 1-800-330-7461. What I wanted to do was to provide a resource for you in Central Florida. Everybody likes to vacation. Most everybody likes to vacation down here. Now, these people can give you information on mask requirements at Disney, at Universal, at the beach. You can decide what you want to do, and they can provide it for you. Best part, they can get you the same price that you can get online, and they can provide a resource outside of that on top of it. Plus, the parks pay them. You don't actually pay them. So it's a pretty good deal. That is 1-800-330-7461. Travel and Cruise World. See Central Florida like a local. Also, if you want to watch the show, you can catch us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. On YouTube, you can catch us at Positively Ole Miss. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And we're on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, one word, all lowercase. You can see the podcast down below. Those are the major ones. Search Positively Ole Miss. Leave a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want to. Just please leave a 5-star review. That'll help others find the podcast as well. That's an algorithm thing in regards to the podcast and the podcast search engine and all that good stuff. So thank you very much for tuning in today. We're going to talk a little bit about Auburn. And in Auburn, we're going to deal with the fact that Ole Miss lost the game 31-20. And we're going to kind of deep dive a little bit into what we think is going on. Not necessarily deep dive, that's the wrong word. Maybe just kind of dive into what went wrong. Because it was a group of events that came together that caused Ole Miss to lose that game. It wasn't one particular thing. You can't blame it on one singular issue. But all of those things that came together did that. We'll talk about that a little bit at the beginning of the show. The second, we'll talk about the performance by Luke Altmyer. We're very impressed by that. And thirdly, we will do lines for Week 10 of college football. Actually, football's on like every day for 27 days, like to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Football's on TV every night. So enjoy that. Ole Miss plays Liberty. We're not really going to get into that today too much because we'll start on that tomorrow because we'll do our Know Thy Enemy and all that good stuff tomorrow. But in Auburn, we told you over and over Ole Miss had to survive the barrage. And they didn't necessarily do that. It was 14-3 really quick in that game. And even before everything started coming together that we view as problems for reasons that Ole Miss lost that game, they were down 14-3. They did not handle the barrage well. Told it that place is a tough place to play. That barrage was going to be quick, and the next thing you know, it was 14-3 really quick. And they kind of jumped on us. Now, Matt Corral got hurt in the first quarter. And the person that was able to kind of settle that game down was Luke Altmyer. For a true freshman to come into that situation to where everything is messing up, injuries everywhere, and to calm down the situation to where Ole Miss had a chance to not only get back into that game, but to potentially win down the road. That was an unbelievable performance. But we'll get onto that in just a second. Matt Corral injured, missed 6 minutes or so of game time, came back. No wide receivers that were starters played. There were times out there we had Ja'Cour Pearson, John Rice Plumlee, and Jaden Jackson. Jaden Jackson is not getting the job done at the moment. That one of the young guys probably need to get thrust into that, and we do trial by fire if those receivers are going to miss any significant time. Period. Through it, John Rice played a bunch. Didn't really get used a bunch, but played a bunch. Ja'Cour Pearson had himself a night, over 100 yards receiving. And I think Ben Brown was out, and maybe at some point Orlando Mana. I'm not sure about that one. So you can see the personnel-wise how much you're down. You're absolutely down. Half of your starting offense with a hurt quarterback. And you start going for it over and over and over again. I understand this a mindset. I understand analytics. I understand all of that. But this is the reality of what you did whenever you kept going for it and going for it and going for it. It forced the defense to not – they had to play perfect to keep it a one-score game in order to make up for lack of a better term, your mistakes on offense. It was an 8-point game, and those guys did a monumental effort of keeping that a one-score game until the very end. One field goal gives you a little bit of margin for error. One field goal. If it was a 5-point game, you have that margin for error. Now, there are people that are going to defend this going for it because they are team never punt and all of that stuff. That's fine, but you can't listen to them, because they'll come at you with information that just basically said, the book said go for it. Well, the book didn't know you were out 3 wide receivers, your tight end, and 2 offensive linemen, and your quarterback was hurt. Going for it in that situation, Matt was less accurate last night because he was injured. Both of his ankles are injured. His footwork was not where it was. He missed an easy 4th down throw because it wasn't very easy to do. He was hurt. It was affected. There's no wide receivers out there to get open. There's no tight end to get open. Although Casey Kelly had a good game. He's starting to come along a little bit. So I don't want to disparage Casey. And because of that, Derek Mason, who stopped Oregon, he made a career. He got the Vanderbilt job because of him stopping Oregon year after year after year. Consistently, defensively. Our offense became a little bit easier to stop because of the injuries. And he just decided to focus on the run game. We weren't going to let the run game beat us. He run blitzed like crazy. Didn't necessarily blitz the quarterback. And he did a lot of zone, everything that was going on. But those receivers are a little bit new. Took advantage of that and stopped the run game. And that's what Derek Mason did. Good plan. And the other side of it is it took us a half to get ready for Auburn running a 3 tight end set and just power running the ball. Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunters, I told you, going into this game, potentially the best pair of running backs in the league. And Tank Bigsby proved it. He ran for like 150 yards, most of that in the first half. Second half, they didn't really do much at all. But in the first half, you had to figure out what was going wrong. You had to figure out what they were doing, how to stop that, how to get it going. And they had trouble doing that. That touchdown at the end of the first half was killer. If it was 21-17 going into the half, Ole Miss had a real shot in the second, especially with Ole Miss getting the ball to start the second half. You had a chance to do it. So, and also the officiating in that game was absolutely shambolic. I say this last because I don't want it to be viewed as the reason we lost this game. But the thing tonight, on the last 4th down, they went for it. I didn't see it. It may have actually happened, but it just the way everything happened leading up to that moment, when they throw two separate penalties on the fourth down, like almost just to make sure that this comes back, it was terrible. Even the announcers in the game were talking about how it was terrible. The officials completely ruined the football game. And because of it, what are you going to do? Now, Auburn has to go to College Station Saturday. You're going to see an old-fashioned football game. If you want to see a game from the 90s, tune in Friday or Saturday to that game. That's the CBS game, I believe. But it took all of those things coming together, all of the injuries, the officiating problems, the fact that Auburn was unbelievably up. All of this came together for Auburn to win. If one of those didn't really fit, coaching decisions, that's the fourth one. Coaching decisions by Ole Miss. If all of those didn't come together, Auburn probably doesn't win that football game, even with like one of the other three in there. So I'm not going to say that they got by doing stuff and they got lucky. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there you can be positive even in a loss about this game, because if you think about how hard they had to work and how many things had to come together for them to get the W, shows you how close we really are. That's the point. How close we really are. Now, another thing is, like, when Matt Corral went down, I hated Lane Kiffin's body language when all this happened. I think players fed off of it, but I absolutely hated his body language during that. Matt's a great kid. We all understand what's going on. We all understand how good he is. But as the head coach of a team, you cannot have that body language. That affects other players. That affected the rest of the game. But it affected the rest of the game. But there's a 6-minute period where Luke Altmyer came in for Matt Corral's injury. Luke Altmyer, he only went 5 of 5 for 19 yards. He had a run either for a first down or close to a first down, but he settled that game down. Ole Miss did not handle the beginning of that game, the barrage, very well. I told you the barrage was coming. They did not handle that very well. I thought they would do a better job after going through Alabama and going through Tennessee, but they really did not handle that well. Now, what probably happened is it was a combination of things, like most things are. And that is that Luke Altmyer, played well and showed a little bit of why he was so highly recruited. And 2, they called a game that was able to bring him in it slowly. They kind of changed up the way they wanted to call the game. Now, this is what people need to realize when they look at quarterbacks like Matt Corral and Luke Altmyer and understand the difference between the two. This offense gets called differently for Matt Corral than it would be for another quarterback. And that is because Matt Corral is special. He can do things. He understands it. He has full grasp of the offense. But you can't call that same offense with Luke Altmyer. So you saw a bunch of shorter passes and things like that. And it was opening up a little bit. Ole Miss was driving the ball. Ole Miss, I think, were 30 or 40 yards into a drive at that point, led by Luke Altmyer, who was 5 of 5 passing, only like 19 yards. And the run game stepped up a little bit. When Matt Corral went down, the running back stepped up. The offensive line blocked a little better. And just out of human nature, the Auburn players also probably dropped down a little bit. But Luke Altmyer actually settling that game down. Whenever Matt Corral came back in, I guess when he got shot up or whatever's going on, the game was already calm and it can go. And next thing you know, it was, instead of 14-3, it's 21-17 with like 3 minutes to go in the first half. and then they let Auburn go down and score a touchdown. Like I said, that was a problem. That was probably the difference in the game. But the game got settled down by Luke Altmyer. It's the reason I tweeted out that the MVP of the game, if Ole Miss were to come back and win, was Luke Altmyer, because it absolutely was. Because the mannerisms of the team changed when he came in. Not saying they thought he was better or anything like that. It just changed. It might be a situation to where you know the backup's coming in. He's a true freshman in front of 90,000 at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and you're going to have to do a little bit more. You realize you kind of dig back for a little bit more in there, and the whole offense kind of started moving a little bit. And whenever Matt Corral came back, the added adrenaline of Matt Corral coming back went on top of that. So that settled the game down and gave us a chance to even be in it. Because I'm going to be honest, when it was 14-3, if we'd have went 3 and out and Auburn would have went down and scored, it had a chance to be a boat race. But it got settled down, and it got settled down by Luke Altmyer, who did a fantastic job as a true freshman. I'm just very blown away by that. And for the first time this year, I actually had the thought where the quarterback next year was not going to be a transfer. You could see the way everybody reacted to him, that Luke Altmyer might be the guy to move forward. And I'm very excited about that. So I want to see him this weekend against Liberty. I want to see Ole Miss jump on him and get going. I understand that it's a 10-point game or something, like 10-point line or something like that. But if Ole Miss can get ahead and give Luke Altmyer some plays, I want to see the confidence bump that he has, because there's going to be one. There's going to be a jump in his development after that Auburn game. That's the most important thing. Is the confidence jump, and you'll be able to see it, and he'll handle it. And it'll be real similar to like what you saw of Matt after the Louisiana Monroe game as a freshman. There was a different Matt that came in against State in 2018 than was early in the season. It is what it is. So, also, going back to the Auburn game, I want to talk a little bit about the coaching decisions. Everybody is going to hide behind the book, and that's what they're doing. They're hiding behind the book. It's an excuse to play the game a little bit like a 12-year-old plays Madden. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not. I'm just saying that criticism of something like that when it doesn't work is warranted. It isn't. You can't hide behind the book of doing it over and over and over again, because the book can't analytically predict the way that game was going. Oh, you're down your starting 3 wide receivers and starting tight end, and your quarterback's hurt, and the officials are making strange calls against you all night. If there's a page in that book that has all of that, I want to see what it is. Because analytically, whenever you want to put it on analytics, say do this, without that information, the analytics are wrong. You take away the starting wide receivers and the starting tight ends, and it could say, analytics could say you have a 70% chance of making it. But if you take those players away, it becomes like a 30% chance of making it. It just isn't quite right. It isn't quite there. So you can't necessarily hide behind the book whenever you do this. And everybody's going to talk about that. And like I said, part of the Lane Kiffin experience is there's going to be some games that he calls like a 12-year-old playing Madden. And you saw it against Alabama earlier in the year. You saw it against Auburn Saturday. Now, I don't know if it'll happen again. It might happen against Texas A&M. It might happen against Mississippi State. I don't know. But it could happen. Another benefit that happens at the start of the game when the barrage happened and made it 14-3. I mean, Auburn went straight down the field twice, running the ball. Everything's going on. Then everything slowed down. In the second half, the defense was quite good. The defense hasn't necessarily put together a dominant game, but they've played well in spurts. And you're talking about a team that's going to probably be in the mid 70s, mid 80s in final rankings. So I want to see what they look like this weekend against Liberty. And that's just because we have we have better players than they do. They have Malik Willis, who's a fine quarterback. I'm not saying anything about that. But as far as offensive linemen and everything going on, you have better players than they do. It's a game you should win. This is a team that lost to Louisiana Monroe. So I want to see what the defense can put together for 4 quarters against that. I want to see if Matt Corral's better. I hope we can jump out and get Luke Altmyer some time. I want to have a large enough lead to where Luke Altmyer can play the 4th quarter. Not saying it will happen, saying what I want. And I want to see some young guys get thrown to the fire a little bit at wide receiver. Because honestly, Saturday really can't happen again. If there's that much of a jump between the starters and the second string, you need to go to the young guys. You need to develop those guys because they obviously aren't there one step below. There's a big talent gap. But Ja'Cour Pearson actually showed out. Casey Kelly established himself as a weapon. That's bad that he was the top weapon of the night. A player that's been back from 2 games from an ACL. That's absolutely crazy. But it is what it is. And all right, let's do lines a little bit, and I might give you a couple minutes back. Here we go. Looking at lines, Ole Miss a 10-point favorite over Liberty. It's going to drop down quite a bit. Expect that because of so many players being hurt. Liberty's a pretty good team. They figure Hugh Freeze is going to come up. They're going to have things they want to do. But the other side is they got beat by Syracuse and Louisiana Monroe, and Syracuse ran for like 1,000 yards against them. So if they can't stop the run, we'll beat them pretty good. But Ole Miss is a 10-point favorite. It opened at 10. Georgia is a 38-point favorite. It opened at 39. It's gone the other way. But, I mean, that's Missouri, I'm assuming. Yeah. That's a game against Mizzou. It's in Athens. Missouri struggled with Vanderbilt. Gave up nearly 300 yards rushing to Vanderbilt. Just hand the ball to the running back. You should be fine in that one. Even to cover. Arkansas is favored by 5 over Mississippi State. State, big win over Kentucky over the weekend. Will Rogers, like 37 to 39, some crazy amount. They got the win. They actually got the win, and everything going on in Kentucky falls down a little bit. But Kentucky's favored, or Arkansas is favored by 5 points. It opened at 5 points. You're going to see some drop 8. Arkansas beat them last year, so this is the second game of the revenge tour. So we'll see what Will Rogers can do. Kentucky is favored by 2.5. It opened at 5, so it's going the other way. They're playing against Tennessee. The game's at Kentucky. Tennessee's bye week came at the right time. I like Hendon Hooker a lot. And Kentucky coming from that game. We've told you all year, the Kentucky offense has been fool's gold. And people want to talk about it and everything going on. There's some weapons on that side of the ball, but the numbers and what they're doing is real similar to what they did last year. And because of that, they struggle with teams like Chattanooga. And every now it's 1-score games, and it's just surprising. But Tennessee can legit win this game this weekend. This could be a situation to where Tennessee can just score too quickly for Kentucky, and Kentucky giving up 31 points to Mississippi State this past weekend. That's not a good sign for them. Texas A&M, 4.5-point favorites, opened at 6.5 over Auburn in College Station. This is a CBS game, and like I said earlier, if you like 90s football, you want to see some I formation stuff, this will be the place to go. I expect a pretty decent game. A&M has a better defense, I think, than Auburn. I think they have a better offense as well, but I'm not sure. Bo Nix might go crazy. I'm kind of waffling back and forth on which direction I want to go on this one. I'm rooting, and Ole Miss fans should root for Texas A&M to win the game, and then Auburn to beat Alabama, and then you get a three-way tie. I don't know how that will land, but it is what it is. Alabama is a 29-point favorite against LSU. It opened at 25, so it's even moved 4 points. This game has a chance to be a bloodletting. This could be a game where LSU quits early and they take a beat down, the likes of which we haven't seen since Ole Miss in 2011. People kneeling with 8 minutes to go in the game just because they feel bad about what's going on. So this has a chance to be really, really bad. Also, the last game of the week, Florida going to South Carolina. They're favored by 19 points. It opened at 20. Florida is 2-7 in their last 9 against Power 5 opposition. It'll probably be 3-8 this week, or 3-7 this weekend, or after this weekend. But Florida has a chance to really kind of right the ship a little bit. Now, I think, let me look at Florida's schedule real quick. I know they have Florida State on it. Let's see, Florida schedule. Yeah, the South Carolina, Samford, Missouri, and Florida State. They have a chance to run it, honestly. They have a chance to run that out. But that'll put them still at 8-4. That'll put them in like the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And Dan Mullen will probably go into next season on the hot seat. But everybody will feel a little bit better because they played South Carolina, Samford, Missouri, and Florida State. It is what it is. It's one of those games. You play those tough games early so you can get through it. But, man, Tennessee and Vandy, huh? They do have a win over FAU and South Florida, so they did pretty well in the state of Florida. But they lost to Alabama, Kentucky, LSU, which, that's bad, and Georgia. Like I said, South Carolina, Samford, Missouri, and Florida State up next. We are probably going to give you a couple minutes extra back. So thank you very much for tuning in today. We are going to do this. We've got Beast of the East tonight. Beware, our schedule is going to get really weird in the next coming months between family events, medical events, and everything's going on. So we'll try to do this as much as possible, but just understand what could happen. Anyway, see you tonight, Beast of the East. Tomorrow, POMcast, 10 o'clock. Howdy toddy.